All right, it is 7:03. We are going to bring to order our Thursday, May 3rd City Council meeting. We will start with roll call.
Councilman Becker,
Here.
Councilman Johnson,
Here.
Councilman Schultz,
Here.
President Scheer,
Here.
Councilman Hartwig is excused absence.
Public hearings. This evening, we have none. Agenda item number 4 is public comment. We have no one signed up in person. Just a reminder for anybody on Zoom, the city council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon. That would be name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comments unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. This will be a first call for public comment, both in person and on Zoom. This is a second call for public comment. This is a third and final call for public comment. Seeing none, we will move right along. Agenda item number 5 is our consent agenda. The consent agenda that is outlined is presented for action by the city council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. I will point out that there are still citizen appointments to committees, commissions, and boards. Anybody who's interested in serving can contact the city for open spots. Agenda item 6 is petitions, requests, and communications. 6A is the recognition of life-saving award for Ryan Walters of the Fort Atkinson Police Department.
Hello, everyone. I always like the opportunity to recognize our officers here at City Council. I think it offers a good platform for us to celebrate some awesome things that our officers do in our community. Before I talk about this award, our agency has been doing our awards program for about 5 years. The nice thing about our awards program is it's not me that just decides that I want to recognize an employee. This is a committee of peers within the agency at all different levels that come together and nominate, review, and then recognize officers or employees for the great things they do. Any member of our department can nominate someone for an award, and then our awards committee reviews it based off a set standard and then gives out that award. In the last 5 years, since we've been doing this program, our officer tonight, Officer Ryan Walters, this is the 3rd time he's getting this award for saving a life in our community. So it's pretty significant. Not many officers will have the opportunity to do that in a whole career, and he's done it in the past 5. So something to keep in mind as we talk about this award tonight. On January 16th of this year, we received 911 calls for a home with occupants inside that were unconscious, unaccounted for, possibly stemming from a natural gas leak or a CO2 issue. Emergency personnel was dispatched to the scene, and Officer Walters was the first one on scene. Not thinking about his safety, and his wife will attest to this, he entered the home and initiated rescue for unaccounted people that were in the home. He located a woman in a bedroom who was unconscious and still alive, and was able to carry her out of the home. And that woman, because of his actions, is alive today. Beyond that, there was, other things going on at the scene, but Officer Walters put things aside, understood what was at play, entered the home, triaged different patients in the home, identified a woman that needed immediate care and that he could help and save, and he did so. So I'd like to call Officer Walters up to the front. Normally I have certificate in the medal. Ryan, this medal is actually for your wife. Is your wife still in the room? This medal is for you, not for Ryan. Hold on. All right. So our life-saving award goes to Ryan Walters for the prompt and unselfish act of rendering aid and assistance to another human being, resulting in saving a life. So congratulations. Thank you.
No speeches tonight.
Congratulations again, and we are very fortunate to have you in our community.
Thank you.
Agenda item 7 this evening is resolutions and ordinances. 7A is the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $2,275,000 general obligation refunding bonds.
We do have Justin Fisher, the city's financial advisor, to present this to the council tonight.
Thanks, Rebecca. Great to see everyone. So yeah, this is really a follow-up to some prior meetings we've had earlier this year. When we started this process, we kind of were thinking that we'd be in the bond market maybe in the next several weeks, maybe a month plus. But as you have seen on the news, pretty much on a nightly basis, you continually hear about inflation, rising prices, all sorts of different areas that the economy is experienced right now. And one of those areas is interest rates. We've been seeing pretty fast rise in interest rates. And so when we saw this happening with the inflation at 40-year historic highs and really no end in sight for the foreseeable future, the Fed's constantly talking about their rate hikes, which they're probably going to be doing a 50 basis point rate hike here, and then probably a few more. And so, that after seeing all this economic data, we said, let's take advantage of these still historically low interest rates and get into the market earlier rather than waiting and seeing what happens. And so that's what we did today. And so in front of you, there's a presentation packet. I'll run it through it briefly. So again, this is a general obligation refunding bond in the amount of $2,275,000. This will close May 24th of 2022. Maturities February 1, 2023 to 2042. First interest payment is next year, February 1 of 2023, and can be called, meaning you can refinance it, prepay it, etc., on February 1st of 2030. Rebecca, myself, Michelle, we all participated on the Standard & Poor's bond rating call, where they have a variety of different questions and topics that they go through with us. And, Rebecca and Michelle did an outstanding job answering all the questions, getting them all the documents they needed. And ultimately, S&P went to their rating committee and affirmed the outstanding rating for the city at the AA- bond credit rating. So one of the highest bond ratings you can receive for a community. So you should be very proud. And the report is at the end of this presentation for you to go through. But the final interest rate on this financing for the 20-year issue, 3.34%. So still very attractive interest rate for 20-year financing. So when you look at page 3, a lot of numbers on this page, you've seen this in the past, but really the highlights here when you look at this page is, we set out to hit certain debt service levy targets for strategic planning purposes, not only now, but thinking about the future and what projects you have coming down the pipeline in a couple of years, and also laying in a longer term plan of, getting those necessary investments for the community done on a every other year basis. So we're thinking through all those different things and planning for how that debt service in the future may also affect today. So planning for all that, and we were able to hit those certain debt service targets on here. So when you look at page 4 to the end, this is that rating presentation that I was mentioning. And really, when you go to page 2, there's some highlights that it talks about in the credit overview. If you go down a little bit further, there, one of the main things that S&P really relayed to me after the phone discussion was how strongly managed the community is. You really got your, your policies, your practices in good working order. You abide by them, you stick to them. You've got a good long-term debt plan. You're not, kind of borrowing at a moment's notice. You've really got good budgeting practices, et cetera. So, after reviewing all that, they came back and said, this is a really good, strong credit, and we're going to affirm the AA- that you've received in the past. So, congratulations on getting this done, getting those projects for your community in line, and taking advantage of the rates that we're seeing today, because I don't know where rates are going to go in the future, but all signs point to potentially a little bit higher going forward. So.
Great to get some good news on this front. Again.
Well, and thanks for being nimble and, kind of taking the advice to let's maybe think about where we are in the world right now and try to push this up to make sure we can get these kind of rates.
I think we would all appreciate if it was still at 0.97%, but 3.34 is not anything to scoff at either.
Yeah. And when you think about the 10-year treasury rate right now, that's close to 3% itself for a treasury bond. So, just to put that in perspective.
Historically, what I guess when is the last year we haven't been at like a AA-? Is it?
So the city was at an A+ rating, a lower rating many years ago. And off the top of my head, I can't think, maybe like 2015-ish, around that time frame. And between then and now, the city has worked really hard to stabilize. Well, they were able to get a rating upgrade to the AA- and has worked really hard, because you were still kind of on the fence, between the A+ and the AA-, and they were going back and forth even a couple of years ago. Back in 2019, when we did the rating, it was still kind of between the two. And this rating was much smoother than years past. And they were definitely like, you've kind of surpassed the A+, you're now strong AA-.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any key factors? I'm looking at some of them in the credit overview, but anything that we should be cognizant of that would jeopardize our stable rating?
For a community like Fort Atkinson, the fund balance is going to be key. That's definitely something that all the rating agencies are really looking at, because of everything that we went through with the last several years. Being able to have that reserve set aside in case a pandemic happens, and if you didn't get certain funds from relief funds and so forth, that you would be able to cover your operating expenditures and so forth. So that's definitely something to always be mindful of and cognizant of.
Thank you.
This rating is about as tall as Fort can go, correct?
Correct.
And the reason of that has to do more with income levels and business levels and things like that, that would functionally say we wouldn't have the top rate of AA, correct?
Yeah. There's a lot of different factors that go into it, but definitely the wealth level in the community is a big driver in this, because in all other areas, you could focus on, say, you want 75% fund balance. Well, that could get you a higher rating, but is that realistic, right? And so you got to kind of weigh the pros, the cons, and what is it going to, really matter to get that one notch higher. You're going to have to jeopardize potentially a lot to get to that point. But yeah, a lot of these factors are outside your control.
Yeah, I find it very nice that the city has done so well that it's pretty much at the top of its game. It could do better, but not without risks that are not necessary. And the city is really right there.
Yes, I would agree with that.
If there's nothing else, I will make the motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the sale of $2,275,000 of general obligation refunding bonds.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Shear.
Aye. Carries.
Thanks, everyone. Good to
Thank
see
you. Agenda item 8, reports of officers, boards and committees. 8A is the city manager's report.
Thank you. I want to start off by congratulating Ryan Walters on receiving the Life Saving Award. 3 in 5 years is exceptional. So wanted to recognize that. And Michelle Ebert and her team, as this is municipal or professional municipal clerks week. And we appreciate your efforts, and we will have a proclamation on the next council agenda recognizing the efforts of your department and yourself. So congratulations, enjoy the week.
Oh, thanks. Am I off, Mike?
No.
Okay.
And I also want to congratulate Nick Reith on his promotion to Public Works Supervisor. So that's great to promote from within. So I'm very excited about that. As President Shear mentioned earlier this evening, we have vacancies for citizens on the Airport Committee, Board of Zoning Appeals, Cable Television Committee, Economic Development Commission, Plan Commission. And so if there are any members of the public who are interested in those committees, please check out our website for some more information and an application. You can always reach out to my office as well. We had our second in the series of 3 sessions for our council orientation tonight. We had our talented team of department directors present an overview of their department services and staffing levels to our council members. We also took tours on April 22nd. I'm sure that was pretty eye-opening to some folks who hadn't seen all of our facilities. And then we will follow up with our last session on the 17th of May, which will be about budgeting and local government finance. The city is working with CGI, which is an advertising company, on a series of welcome videos. They were recommended to us by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, and they're providing these videos for free to the city to be featured on our website and theirs. We will be filming, we filmed a video press release last week, and we'll be filming some additional informational videos this summer. So watch out for more information on that. Speaking of our website, back in December, the council approved a new domain name, a .gov domain name. And city staff is moving forward with the new domain name, switching to fiber internet and our new VoIP phone system on July 1st. So we'll have new email addresses, new phone numbers at that time. We'll begin providing information to the public in later this month, and then follow up with additional details in June. The .gov domain name is more secure. The fiber will be faster and more efficient, and the VoIP phones will provide us with additional flexibility in access to the public. Also, as everybody I hope knows, the Robert Street Bridge will close later this month for a new bridge deck. Along with that closure, there will be no on-street parking on Main Street to accommodate the additional traffic. The city will be issuing some communication about that project later this week, even though the specific date of the closure and restriping of Main Street has not yet been determined. So stay tuned for more information on that as well. Staff continues to work with the 3 developers who have submitted interest for the Baker Road site for development. We have a couple more interviews over the next 2 weeks, and we hope to bring more information back to the council on the meeting at the meeting on June 7th. As Andy alluded to earlier tonight, we will be performing our first round of interviews with candidates for the building inspector zoning administrator position later this week. So hopefully we have some good folks and we can move forward with hiring that position full time. Also, as you may have noticed, all the dreary weather this week, the rain activated paint around the city has been installed, and today was a pretty perfect day to enjoy to see all that's painted on the sidewalks and by some of our municipal buildings. So I thought that was a great addition, and I hope people got to see it with the rainy weather today. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'll say I walked here this evening and saw a couple smiley faces on sidewalks, so it was pretty neat. Agenda item 8B is the review and possible action relating to council appointments to committees, commissions, and boards by the council president. You will see them before you. I did my best to take into consideration everyone's requests, and I tried to accommodate as much as I could. If you have not been on a committee, commission, or board before, I tried to get you on that as well, so we are all well versed in all the workings of our community.
Looks good to me. I'll move to approve the council appointments to committees, commissions, and boards by the council president.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item 9, unfinished business. This evening, we have none. 10, new business. 10A is the review and possible action relating to a request from the Fort Atkinson Beautification Council for a mural on a city-owned building located at 31 North Water Street West.
Yeah, thank you. This item came up, I believe, at the last meeting, if not the meeting before. Jude Hartwick had brought this to council's attention. This is a continuation of the mural that was placed on the back of the water administration building. This is going to go on the building next door to it, literally right there. And that's our water reservoir. It's 50,000 gallon water reservoir. The back of the building is currently painted white. And the mural is going to fit within the white spaces that are there on the back of the building in between the brickwork. There's a photo, I think, from the perspective of the building within the packet. City staff has looked at this and really have no concerns regarding it, and would support it. It'll move through the various approvals of the special area design review that were noted in the packet there. That'll go through the planning commission process, as well as the historic
Preservation Commission.
Preservation Committee. Thank you. So we're just simply looking for city council's approval for the city as the owner of the building to submit this request.
Any discussion or question from the council?
No, I was real impressed with what Jude told us about the quality of the materials that was being used for the painting and how durable and long lasting they were.
Yeah,
Thought
it's
that-
the same as the previous one that they did, and seems to be
He said
well.
that was holding up outstandingly well.
Yeah.
I move to authorize the Fort Atkinson Beautification Council to submit a special area design review application for proposed mural on the city-owned building located at 31 North Water Street West.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thanks.
10B is the review and possible action relating to the purchase of light rescue vehicle for $349,917 and associated equipment for $75,306 for a total of $425,223 for the fire department.
Okay, this is a planned purchase from our capital equipment plan. When I came here in 2016, the capital equipment plan was fairly up to date from Chief Reel. During the negotiations with the new township contracts in 2018 and 19, we recalculated that plan and restacked that plan in order to make it fit the revenues that were going to be coming in, so that the township portions was already in hand prior to the purchase of the vehicle. For information, the townships pay approximately 31.8% of all new equipment. City pays 68.2%. So we restacked that plan in order to make that happen. We did get rid of Squad 109 prior to the construction at the fire station because it had some pretty serious issues. It was a tilt cab Ford chassis, and the hood was actually falling off of it. The hinges had rusted off the frame, so it was, in my opinion, it was pretty unsafe. So we took the equipment off, it redistributed it to other trucks temporarily. It also freed up space in the station for the construction because, as you remember, we stayed in the station during the construction, so we had limited space to keep stuff. So Once that project was done, then we started moving ahead with getting this truck ordered. If you read the memo, the chassis availability is a nightmare right now. So we're working at a little bit of a enhanced time frame in order to get the truck ordered so that we still get a 2024 chassis. The current contract that I have in hand, waiting to be signed, calls out a 20.5 to 21.5 month build time. If we don't place the order fairly soon, we'll be in a 25 chassis, which will stretch the build time out to about 36 months. There is also a 7.1% increase from Pierce that took effect on May 1st. They are holding the price until the 6th of May, pending the outcome of our discussion this evening. So all told, there's a significant savings by moving ahead with the project now. It was actually a 2023 scheduled purchase, and we will not pay for the truck until it arrives. So that will be in 2024. So some of the money from the borrowing that you did will need to be carried forward in order to be held for this project. So with that, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer those. The city manager put together a pretty detailed memo, so.
Yeah, so just to point out a couple of those items. So the total of the rescue truck is $349,917. The extrication tools are $75,306 for a total of $425,223. Of that, the city's portion is 68.2% per our contract, which equates to about $290,002. And the township portion is $135,221. So we do have an equipment replacement fund that those towns with their contract, they pay us and money goes into that equipment replacement fund. So we do have funds within that fund to pay for the town portion of this project. Moving down a little bit more into the memo, the city did allocate $420,000 for the purpose of purchasing the vehicle and equipment, but only about $290,000 will be needed for the city's portion. Per the terms of that note anticipation note, we have several options for the $130,000 in borrowing that may not end up needing to be allocated for this project. Those are listed in the memo. We can retain the funds in case the price of the chassis increases before the contract is finalized. We can spend the funds within the next 3 years on other fire department vehicle and equipment items, or we can spend the funds on other projects or purchases included in the borrowing. And there are other projects in the borrowing that may not be fully funded when it comes time to actually pay for them. So the council does not have to make a decision on this issue tonight, just something to consider. The matter will come back before the council in the future with a staff recommendation as the other project costs become more clear over the next about 2 years.
Yeah, to be clear, when we did the capital plan, we had intended to replace Squad 109 with another heavy rescue, so a large truck. We've since determined that our role is somewhat changing a little bit. And there's a lot more use for a light rescue outside of just responding to car accidents and rescue calls. So it will be somewhat of a utility vehicle as well. So rather than running the engines, which now, by the way, are going to cost in the neighborhood of $780,000 to replace, we'll try to keep some of the miles off those by using this light rescue for some of that non-emergent response stuff.
Makes sense. It's good forward planning. 7% of price tag this big is a big increase, and we have budgeted appropriately for this. So I think this makes sense to move forward and work on getting a chassis to us sooner rather than later.
I agree. It's good planning, and unfortunately none of this stuff is getting any cheaper. So let's move forward.
For the purpose of transparency, you probably read in the memo that there could be a price increase on the chassis. That could be several percent. There is an option to cancel the order based on any increase. But I think any increase in chassis costs for one model year is probably significantly less than the price increase that we would incur by not ordering it now.
Makes sense. I move to authorize the city manager to sign a purchase contract with Reliant for equipment for the Pierce Light Rescue Truck for $349,917 and for the associated Genesis equipment for $75,306, totaling $425,233 to be paid for through the 2022 borrowing and the town fire vehicle equipment replacement account as described in the memo.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item 10C is the review and possible action relating to the purchase of a used ambulance for $30,000 for the fire department to support the city's provision of 911 EMS services starting on January 1st, 2023.
Okay, so again, the memo is fairly complete, but I'll just kind of review with the inception of EMS, which by the way, thank you to the council for your efforts in helping us get that referendum passed. Along with that, we currently have one ambulance. We determined that we need two ambulances to serve on a daily basis. That was part of the premise of the referendum, is improving 911 service. In order to do that effectively, we feel that a third unit to be used as both as a spare when one of the two primary units is out of service, and also to be staffed by our paid on call volunteers as a EMT basic unit when the other two units are otherwise engaged. So we've determined that it would make sense to have a third truck. It did not make sense to have another new truck, since this will be a very low usage vehicle, approximately 25 to 50 calls a year. So we looked around for a used vehicle. We did find a very adequate used vehicle. We sent Mike Reel, who's our chief engineer now, former chief, to Ohio to look at it. He reported that was, in his opinion, was in very good shape, which if Mike Reel says something is in very good shape, I'm fairly confident in it because he's very picky. We did make an offer on it, slightly less than they were asking. It was advertised at $32,000, but we determined it needs new rear tires. So we made a counter offer and it was accepted pending council approval. I believe the agenda packet included a copy of the tentative bill of sale. And with your approval, we will get it picked up, and it will need some conversion to get it re-graphics and get a cot holder installed and things like that, and radios. So again, our whole plan, as I said a little bit earlier during the council orientation, is to have all of the elements in place, including state approvals and all equipment in place by August 1st, so that we're ready to start up. And then once all that stuff is in place, then we'll work with the police and fire commission to move on to the next steps with hiring and stuff. So this is one of the steps of getting that service up and running. And we feel that it's a good option without overburdening our startup budget. There was some savings in the startup budget because of a couple of very generous donations that we received. One from one of your competitors, Firehouse Subs, and also one from Jones Dairy Farm. So we're targeted donations specifically for a couple pieces of equipment. So with that, I would answer questions if you have any. I'll defer to the city manager if she has anything to add.
No, I was just gonna note that while this used ambulance was not included in the startup budget, as Chief mentioned, we freed up some money through donations and a grant, freed up about $32,000 in that budget to be able to be used toward the purchase of an ambulance.
This will actually fits very well into our vehicle replacement plan because it's a little bit older. So it will help us with stair stepping those vehicles. So our plan is to use a new ambulance as the primary. The current ambulance that we have is the secondary. So about 1,000 calls a year on the primary, about 400 calls a year on the backup. And then, like I said earlier, 25 to 50 calls a year with this third unit. So it would actually be the first one that would be replaced. And I think our first replacement is about year 5 of the operation.
I think it's a good reallocation of some generous donations, and I think if there's a chassis available, we should take advantage of it to just have the extra vehicle should something happen. So. Anybody want to make a motion?
Well, I will go ahead. I will make the motion to approve the purchase of the 2004 GMC Kodiak Osage ambulance from the Highland County North Joint Fire and Ambulance District for $30,000 using funds allocated through the EMS startup budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Now move on to 10D, which is the review and possible action relating to the purchase of a new demonstration ambulance for $263,448 for the fire department to support the city's provision of 911 EMS services starting on January 1st, 2023.
Okay, and I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but again, chassis are difficult. So when we started making phone calls after the referendum passed, actually before the referendum passed, we started doing some exploratory calls. But after the referendum passed, we started earnestly looking for an ambulance company that had a chassis that could be built on. Everybody told me that there was no way that we could get a new ambulance by the first of the year. Generally, the quickest I could find one was 16 months. That was not a guarantee. That was an estimate of construction. So then I had a discussion with the city manager. We agreed that maybe we should look at possibly another used vehicle. I happened to be at the Wisconsin State Firefighters Convention doing a presentation on the warehouse fire last August. And this vehicle that is shown in your memo there was actually at the show as a demonstrator. I asked the company if it had been sold yet. Generally, if a vehicle is at one of those conventions, it's already got a department name on it and it already belongs to somebody. This one did not. It had a dealer's name on. So we decided that this was actually before the referendum when that occurred. We decided if that was still available, we would try to pursue that. It did work out that it is still available. It's a 2022 chassis. It will have somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 miles on it by the time we get it. It'll be reconfigured to meet our specification, which was sent out. The specification, other than some lighting changes and some reflective material on the back of the unit, it already met all of the specs that we had put together. So we feel that it's a good use. I think it's a good price. It's a bit higher than we had planned on spending, but it did include a few things that were already built into it that we probably wouldn't have added, but it is available and will be able to be modified to fit our needs and delivered to us by December 1st. So our recommendation was to go ahead and purchase that unit. And then there'll be some other equipment that we'll be coming back to later. Some small equipment and stretchers and things like that we'll need that we'll also be coming back for later. But so that is our recommendation.
I move to approve the purchase of a new demonstration ambulance from Jefferson Fire and Safety Equipment for $263,448 using funds allocated through the EMS startup budget.
Second.
Any further discussion? I do have a couple questions. One of them, you said that this was slightly higher than budgeted for. Are we still looking good on our initial startup budget for 911 services?
Yes. Yeah, there's a couple other areas that we have a grant pending for some radios that I'm fairly confident that we're going to get. So there'll be some savings there. I think overall, we will still fit well within that 500,000 that we set for startup. That's funded through the community foundation and the ARPA money.
Yeah, I was going to note that as well, that startup budget does not include any general fund dollars. If you all recall, it's our ARPA funds plus our grant that we received from the community foundation. And then the initial budget projection for this new ambulance, including the power load system, was $243,000. And this unit came in at $263,000. So it's about a $20,000 difference. But we are confident that there's other adjustments that'll be made through that startup budget that will be able to fund this fully through that.
Again, we would probably see some increase in chassis, even if we could wait. We really could start up with 2 trucks, as long as we had a plan to get to the new one. But I think the chassis increase and the construction of the actual module, most likely we'll see an increase over the next year. All of the other equipment manufacturers are already calling out 5 to 7% increases. So I think that the additional for purchasing now really becomes a wash with any increases that we would see.
Makes sense. Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Again, any other discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, chief.
Agenda item 10E is the review and possible action relating to proposals from consultants for the development of a municipal building facility assessment.
Thank you. So we all wear many hats in our jobs, and overseeing the municipal building maintenance is one of my additional hats beyond Parks and Rec. So we sought proposals for a facility assessment for our nearing 100-year-old municipal building with the goal of keeping current spaces, structures, and infrastructure in proper operating condition in a routine fashion to prevent failure. This assessment will serve as a roadmap showing what needs to be done with costs associated with the improvements. So the RFP was released on April 1st. We received 5 proposals by the deadline of April 20th. So using the criteria established in the matrix, I move forward with further analyzation with the top 2 consultants, which were Plunkett, Racich Architects, and the Sigma Group. Both consultants received exceptional recommendations, and I was impressed with the final assessment examples provided by both the consultants. However, Plunkett's examples included minor repairs along with realistic minor repair costs, especially for our budget here. The Sigma Group's example, they provided, it would say minor next to ceiling tiles, but there were no costs associated to that. So it seemed like they only provided costs if it was over $1,000. Another deliverable PRA proposed was to create floor plan diagrams for architectural changes with recommended repairs or improvements, whereas Sigma did not include any master planning to better meet the needs of the city and the public. Additionally, Plunkett has proved to be a highly recommended consultant by completing over 50 projects combined for the school district here in Fort Atkinson, Madison College, Fort Healthcare, and several corporate clients all in Fort Atkinson. So they're very well known locally. So staff would recommend the city council accept the proposal from Plunkett Racich Architects to serve as the municipal building facility assessment consultant. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I was really impressed by the sample bids or assessments that they had submitted, and the detail and level of work that they get into, and feel like it's really timely since some of us got to tour this facility about a week and a half ago and saw some of the underbelly. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing. This building is approaching almost 100 years old. And hopefully if we're able to address these needs, maybe, who knows, maybe we'll be around for 100 more yet. We'll see.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the floor plan diagrams come in play. That would be really helpful because, you know, some departments don't have any windows. And there's no privacy in a lot of the departments, in addition to, you know, not just my department, but throughout the municipal building. So I think it'll be very beneficial and create a planning document for the municipal building.
I would agree with Mason after getting to go through a tour. It was interesting how much space we actually still have available within our building, but then also how much of it needs to be reconfigured just to be more usable. So
I will just note that it was included in the memo, but I'll just say it out loud that this was included in our CIP plan, CIP budget for 2022 at $9,000.
Obviously, I expect they'll be coming back, assuming we approve this with a wide range of recommendations. I mean, are you thinking that will kind of be an incremental thing over the next few years that we would look to address those, or will
Yep.
it be something else?
Yes, and they'll do like a priority, like a low, mid, and high priority. So obviously, you know, some ceiling tiles may be a little higher priority if they're anything like Tom's building, or you know, over windows or carpet somewhere else. So it'll be really a planning document to follow along throughout the 5 or 10 years.
Great, makes sense.
I move to approve the proposal from Plunkett Rasich Architects for the development of a municipal building facility assessment at the cost of $8,800 and authorize the city manager to execute a contract for those services.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 11, miscellaneous. This evening we have none. Agenda item 12, claims, appropriations, and contract payments. 12A is the review and possible action relating to the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to approve the list of verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorize payment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz.
Aye.
President Scher.
Aye, motion is approved. Takes us to agenda item 13, which is adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.